Let me give you 6 simple little, like a checklist, really basic, that I'm using with every company that I have to get them turned around and to make sure that they're prepared so we're ready to go back to work, or some of them are doing it now. Let me show you a couple examples of companies that are thriving in this environment. And then we'll take 5 minutes to do this. And then I'm going to bring Simon and have him start to explain to you what are the biggest opportunities for the government's help to get you through the short term, because every business is obviously having some challenges or some struggles. So the first thing I've got up here for you is Humpty Dumpty will not be put back together, at least not in the same way. And what I mean by that is, like 9/11, like some of the other experiences we've had that have changed people's psychology or mindset about public or travel or getting on a plane or anything else, now that we've been instructed to isolate from each other, not touch each other, not to get too close to each other, and it's started to get habituated, and there's so much fear and such a lack of education that people don't look around and go, okay, well then why is Denmark thriving and they're not dying in mass and they're not doing any things we're talking about? Because in the end, they'll all tell us they saved us by separating us from each other. So I don't know what the new world looks like, and I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. I'm saying use your own critical thinking, but you should think in terms of what the market might change like even when we come back to work. And you want to adapt, because what makes you successful in business, I know you know, is to start obsessing not about your product or service. Obsess and fall in love with your client or your customer. If you fall in love with your customer where their needs change, you'll find a way to meet their needs. And if you meet their needs and you over-deliver, you do more than they expect, then you're going to have a business that'll thrive again. But if you say, like, I'll give you an example. I have partners in the movie business. They own a whole series of theaters all over the United States. What's going to happen when we come back? We don't know. The government may say, okay, you can go back to work, you can go back to your movie, you can go back to these things, but you got to stay 6 feet apart. And I've heard some of the people in the movie business, one of my dear friends was telling me about discussions, and they're saying, well, maybe we'll put a thermometer on people to see what their temperature is as they come in, and then maybe we'll have them 6 feet apart. Well, think about that. That's a different world. Who's going to go take their date to a movie and say it's 6 feet apart from your date? You'll sit home and watch Netflix or something else instead. There's too much friction, you understand? So you got to think about, what are you going to do? What are the options, and what are you going to do? How would you adapt? How could you meet your clients' needs better than before if you adapted? So in order to do that, let me give an example. In my own education business, I've got 54 companies, variety of them, but one of the one matters the most to me because it's my mission, is my education seminars, how some of you probably know me. And think about it. We had, we had London, that had to be rescheduled. We had San Francisco, we had Amsterdam, we had Moscow, and we had Australia, all rescheduled in a period of 2-3 months that we've had to try to push later into the year. But we don't know somebody come back and say, you can't put 1,000 people together. Well, my average seminar is 10 to 15,000 people. And you imagine going to a football game or a sport and it's an empty stadium or you're a few seats apart. I mean, you'll end up watching on TV. It'll change the game. So we have to be prepared for that. So in my own business, I'm looking at ways that we could do smaller events, more intimate, simultaneously. We've already made investments during these last few weeks and have already filmed one of my previous events. We filmed it because I was already anticipating in 3D. In other words, so that people could literally have a virtual reality experience. And we tested it with a group of 50 or 60 people. We had a big screen, which if somebody's a live seminar, they often see me on a big screen as well because there's 10, 15,000 people. And then we had this 3D where you could actually feel like you're there with me. And so we have one of those set up. And if we have to in the future and certain people can't go, we're going to test out this as a way of meeting their needs. Let me show you a couple examples. Let's throw up a couple examples of businesses that are adapting right now. They're, instead of waiting and hoping things will change, this is a little bakery in San Francisco, California. And this bakery was literally being put under there. Everybody shut down. They're not essential services. And they said, you know what? People are going to want some form of joy while they're cooped up. Why don't we make little cakes, like for 2 to 4 people, not a giant cake. And let's use all these funny little things that are called quarantine cakes. Wash your hands on it. Don't touch your face. Clean and disinfect. Don't hoard face masks. Their business is now bigger than it was before when they had their normal open office or their open bakery. Here's another one, all right? Because they're adapting. This is a blood test. They Costa Coffee. Now this is in your country, right? So it's a drive-through blood test clinic in Cornwall. The clinic, which minimizes contact between patients and staff, allows pinprick tests to be carried out in seconds without leaving the car. It means patients who need regular tests, such as those that have blood thinners like warfarin, can avoid having to visit the hospital. So, something good comes out of it. People don't have to go to visit the hospital in the future for things like warfarin. They're finding a way to turn this into something valuable. Let's go to another one real fast, just real quick. Pets at home. They quickly shifted and focused on medicines and veterinary supplies. They got exceptional demand, and they're doing direct deliveries. Their business is growing. This is out of the UK. Here's another one. Pizza delivery. Shoot. In my country, I don't know what it's like in yours. I couldn't find the stats, but people are buying more pizza than ever before. And these companies like Papa John here, he's trying to add 20,000 more workers. Their global revenues have gone up 3% without any advertising, 2.3% in 3 months here from March. Pizza Hut's adding 30,000 positions. Domino's sales were up 4.9% in the first quarter. International sales up 7% because they're delivering to meet people's needs where they are right now. Next. And then these are just CVS. This is in my country. It's a pharmacy. They were suffering. They're not. Now they're hiring 50,000 full-time employees. They're delivering, 2-day delivery. They have their own delivery service. They're not using FedEx or somebody else or Amazon. They're delivering directly to the local community they serve. And already their business is back, even though no one's back working, because they're just delivering. They're meeting their needs. Instacart's hiring another 300,000 people. So I just want you to get the feel. One more. I saw a butcher in Texas who normally that's all he does is sell raw meat. There you go. Dallas Butcher Shop. It's called Deep Cuts in Dallas. He doubled the size of his shop and hired a new chef. Now, this is a guy that was told he had to shut down. He had 1,400 square feet. Nobody could come in his little place where they would look around. It's a butcher and buy meat. So he said, that's fine. I'm going to put myself in a position. I'm going to create a drive-up window. And I'm not only going to sell them raw meat to cook at home, but so many people don't want to cook. I'm going to hire a chef, and I'm going to have him cook meat and all the sides so now they can come along. Well, he's now doubling his slice. He's adding another 1,500 square feet next door, growing in the middle of the crisis. Let's go back to our group of 7 or 6. So these are just to try and give you a flavor that if you can think outside the 9 dots, perhaps there's a way to do it. But if you sit around thinking it's going to be the same when we go back to work, you're not. Some things will be the same. Some will eventually get back to the same, but you got to be prepared. Number 2, you got to know your numbers and you got to call it tight. What does that mean? In all my organizations, all my companies, there are people that are optimistic, usually salespeople. There are people who are pessimistic, And if you go to either extreme, if you're too pessimistic, you're going to be overwhelmed and give up. If you're too optimistic, you're not going to be ready for what goes on. So calling it tight means looking at numbers and knowing what they really mean and figuring out what needs to be done. And instead of doing this by yourself, this is where it's valuable to have a CFO, or maybe you have somebody that's really successful in business, who's run multiple businesses that can kind of give you some coaching. But you got to know your numbers, and most entrepreneurs don't. They have a cursory understanding of their numbers, not what each number will mean if I alter it slightly. Sometimes you can make the smallest change in the right direction and radically shift a business. My companies now do over $6 billion in sales combined across all these 54 entities. And I've grown most of them from either small companies, startup companies, or companies I bought initially, but we've grown them massively. We grew one business from literally, was it 16 billion in AUM, and partnered to bring it to 38 billion. Another one, and then 3.5 years. We took another one from 0 to 4.2 billion, literally in 3.5 years. And it's by optimizing, figuring out what the numbers are, learning how to shift them. So that's why having a CFO is so valuable. But if you don't, you got to get somebody to help you, and you got to figure out what needs to be done now, because that leads to step 3, which is you got to make the tough decisions now. If you wait till later when you think you have more information, by that time, you may have bled too much. You may not be able to make it if you do that. Think about it this way. If you're a leader, what makes you a leader is you make decisions. And leaders are paid to make the tough decisions, not the easy ones. The easy ones, everybody knows what to do. It's obvious, and anybody can do it. The hard ones are, it's like, oh my God, the wrong decision could really hurt here. But you got to make a decision. Even if you're wrong, you got to make a decision, because you find if you're wrong and you take action, you'll find out quicker. But if you sit on that fence, you're going to find your business start to drop and drop and drop away. So know your numbers, figure out what's got to be done, and cutting your costs, getting your business to a point that even if the business is smaller, it can be more successful. And listen, you've got to really, really, really in this situation, make sure that you're not trying to make the wrong decision, because nobody knows how to make the perfect decision. But the best way is bring a team of people that are qualified, or friends of yours that are really smart, that'll tell you the truth, that are successful in business. Together, make the decisions and implement them. Fourth, get help. Don't let your ego get in the way. Listen, I've been talking to some of the most brilliant business leaders that I know of in the world, and some of the most brilliant virologists, so I understand the medical side as well. And I've been obsessed by it for the last month. Every day I'm calling more people, and I'm talking to people that have taken businesses from nothing. A dear friend of mine named Mark Benioff took his business, went to one of my seminars, 3 of them in a row, came up, said, I'm leaving Oracle where he worked. I'm going to start this new business called Salesforce.com. We're going to change the world, Tony. Come with me. So we're going to do $100 million in business. Well, now the company I think is going to do $15 billion, right? It's just amazing what he's built. But Mark gives me that insight. So I look for people also that have made it through other tough times and get their coaching. Like, I was alive starting my business in 1978. We had 18% inflation. I repeat, 18%. Today, I tried to buy a triplex when I was 18 years old. It was 18% interest. I mean, try to buy something that expensive and make money. Today, people would be on the White House lawn. They'd be destroying the economy if they're going after the president if interest rates are like that. What we got to understand is that how did people make it through that time? Because we're going to probably experience inflation again at some point with all this money printing that's going on. What about the people that went through 1978? What about the 1987 crash? How about 1999, 2001, the tech crash, 9/11 crash, 2008? Talk to people that have been through it, and that'll give you confidence you can do it, and they can usually give you some good insights. And you want to get help from your government to get through this 90 days, which we're about to get to. Last 3 points. You want to brainstorm solutions, new ways of trying to do your business. Kind of like us saying, well, let's try, for example, this remote viewing, or I should say augmented reality, virtual reality approach. Let's go do a test. Let's see how people respond. That's what I mean by skunk works. Some of our greatest businesses started out a new product that we thought, we don't know if it'll work or not, but let's try something with a small number of people and see if we can blow them away with value. If you can brainstorm solutions and try new things, some of the new things you try will transform things. One of the things that came out of 2008 when people weren't going to events, they weren't going anywhere, they're freaked out back in those days. And in my education company, I said, we need to focus on who's our ideal customer. And that's my recommendation to you as well. Who's your ideal customer? Who's going to stay with you through thick and thin? Who's going to refer people still, even if other people are afraid? Who's going to, tell people about your product and service and be a raving fan? And you want to overservice those people. And so for us, we found business owners were the ones we wanted to support the most because we're family. You and I are brothers and sisters. We got to struggle with the same things, have the same victories if we do well, experience the same defeats if we don't. We got to learn from it all. And listen, you can spend a small amount of money investing in business distinctions and get a 10, 100, 1,000% return with that knowledge and that skill. I remember when I interviewed Warren Buffett, he said to me, I said, what's been the most valuable, what's the best investment you've ever made? I knew of several of his biggest investments of his history, and I thought he was going to tell me one of those. He goes, Tony, best investment I ever made is what you do. So what are you talking about? He said, I went to Dale Carnegie. He said, the best investment any human can make is in their own ability or skill, because that'll give you multiplied effects. He said, none of what I do would be as effective if I hadn't learned how to communicate well. So invest in yourself is a really important thing to do as well, but you've got to put yourself in a position where you do some of these tests. You figure out, what can I try? And we did this with Business Mastery years ago, and it blew the doors off. It allowed us to service people in a brand new way, add such value to their lives, help them grow their business 130% over 6 to 12 months, and the word spread like wildfire. Now it's one of those popular programs we have. And we've seen in our company 20% growth per year for 12 straight years since 2008. Here's what's great about crisis. Crisis either crushes you or it transforms you. Crisis creates breakthrough if you don't give up. So it's time to create a breakthrough. Let's test some. And finally, last 2, and we'll get to what your government can do for you now. If you've not been with me anymore, it may sound weird, beautiful state, but I used to believe that, man, when I'm angry, I get sharp as a tack, I can figure it out. That's true. But when I'm happy, I'm sharp as a tack and I can figure it out, and other people enjoy being around me. And so everyone has a different personality. But if you can learn to find the beauty in this moment, you're going to find solutions a lot easier than if you're living in fear or anger or frustration. And so you're the leader. If you can't project that energy of we're going to make it through, well, then there's no question. If you don't have that inside you, that certainty and a certain amount of happiness or joy that says, yeah, we're going to enjoy rebuilding or building to a new level, you're not going to be able to get your people there. So you got to catch yourself first. And you got to I got to tell you, so I've not had in 43 years, I've not been on stage, I've not been off a stage for more than 5.5 weeks, usually between Christmas and the beginning of January. That happens every year. This year, because of all the canceled events and rescheduled events, I've got 3 months. So I'm running all my companies, but I'm also training like crazy, physically training. If you train your body 4 or 5 times a week, your mind gets trained. When the body's strong, so is the mind. You got to think about it. Fear is physical, so is courage. And when you push yourself with a sprint or a run or jump in cold water, anything that radically changes your state, when you tell your brain, I'm going to do this, and you do it, it trains your brain to be more resilient. And so take care of your health and use this time to enjoy breaking back habits. And the last thing is, if you're going to grow your business, there's no replacement for the most basic fundamental. Add more value. Find a way to do more for other people than anybody else in your industry, and you will develop a brand. You will dominate. But once again, you got to fall in love with your customer, not your product or service. The products and services have to change. The client, that's who you're here to serve. So I'm doing this in all my companies. It's my little mini checklist. It's not super complex, obviously, but I'm using this checklist with all my teams to get the right psychology, to get the right numbers, to anticipate what's coming so we don't have to react. We're still not going to know for sure, and to put ourselves in position so we're ready to win. Now, there's one final step, and it's the main purpose I brought you on for this call, and we're going to do it now. And that is, what do we do? How can we get help from the government to go from where we are now, where many of you have no revenues, no sales, and still lots of overhead? What can the government do to help us? So for that, I'm going to take you to Simon, my partner. And Simon he's a growth expert. I mean, that's his entire focus, is helping small, medium-sized businesses. His company's called GrowFactor. He's part of our Global Accounting Advisors Alliance. And he's going to show you right now how to walk through what are they offering you in this $330 billion stimulus package, and show you what packages are out there and how you can access them right away. And so if you'll help me give a virtual big hand for Simon Kallu. Give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go, Simon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tony. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to share my slides and then we'll get going. At the moment, there is actually a lot of help out there for UK businesses, but there's so much information and there's too much of it. It's confusing. So how do you take advantage of the £330 billion government relief package? And how do you maximize its benefits? So just before we get into it, just a bit about the Global Accounting Advisors. Our mission is serving business owners. And typically, that's been a combination of tax planning, accounting, bookkeeping. But we noticed that there was, a need for something else during these unprecedented times. And this is just a survey that my colleague in the GAA, Tyler, did on his Instagram just only a couple of weeks ago that was really, really upsetting. Over 65% of businesses are currently shut down. They're nearly shut down, or they've lost a significant portion of their business. And obviously the events, hospitality and leisure sectors are hit hardest because most of them are closed. We're in isolation in the UK, as obviously you guys know. And a good example is a photographer that I was speaking to. He's an amazing photographer. He photographs celebrity clients. He had a great business, no reason to suspect that anything would happen to that. His revenue is now at nil because he can't go out and take pictures. And he didn't necessarily prepare himself for winter by saving up the cash reserves that he could have done or would do now in the future. Another client, an events business, they were at £110,000 a month. They've been able to pivot slightly and get back to 20K a month with moving some of their events into an online space. However, look, it's a 90K loss. And so they're not even covering their fixed costs at the moment. So we knew as the GAA, the Global Accounting Advisors, that we needed to change our strategy. We had clients and we still have got, I've spoken to nearly all of my clients now, but we had clients breaking down in tears on the phone with us. That I see that most businesses are in two camps. They're either super entrepreneurial, and so they relish the challenge, or they're stuck. And most business owners are stuck at the moment. And we wanted to help as best as we could. So we decided to pivot ourselves and change what we're doing in our day-to-day and help them and you through the process of securing the relief that's available and crisis planning. So hopefully today in this presentation, you'll see that, there is a lot of information, but I've really tried hard over the last 7 days writing and rewriting this deck so that it contains all the information, but it's a nice summary for you. So what are some advised action steps before we get into the government reliefs? And some of this is kind of echoing what Tony said as well. The first one is lean out your budget. So what does that mean? Put your business on a diet. There'll be 3 types of businesses right now, as I see. One that's thriving right now. Tony had some examples of those. One that's maybe just treading water. They're doing some things, but haven't really pivoted. One that's declining and they're totally stuck. Every single one of those businesses should still go through the process of leaning out. So that's reducing your fixed costs, looking at costs that are going through the business that you don't even need. I'm sure if you haven't done this, there are software subscriptions that you've got going through your bank accounts that you haven't used for 12, 18 months. So we'll get into that in a bit more detail, what the process is, but lean out your business. And then develop pivot revenue streams. So that just means look at the example of the bakery. That's another revenue stream, but it's the same product, effectively cakes, to the same marketplace. They're just adapting it slightly. So you could have a new product into the same marketplace, a new product into a new marketplace. It's just about saying, I must do something. I must get resourceful and I must think about what my clients and customers need now. And then these are the things that we're going to dig into today. Identifying the right reliefs for your business. So, there's so much information out there. Which reliefs apply to you? How can you apply for them? There's been so much difficulty right now in getting access to the interruption loans, for example. There's 330 billion of government-backed funding. But look, it's really, really difficult to get hold of it because the process is so difficult, so laborious, and it's quite complicated. So how do you obtain the relief quickly? We'll go through that. It's really important as well right now, in order to obtain the financing, you'll need to do this, but just in any good business, creation of a financial plan and management of your ongoing cash. If you think about what's happening at the moment, what's on the table is, as a business owner, you can push all of your tax payments forward, and we'll go into exactly what those are and how that works. You can get some cash in now, but maybe in February, March, April next year, you could be in a position where you've got triple VAT payments, personal tax payments, company tax payments, all coming out in the space of 3 months. And so you might get through this and think as a business owner, great, I'm sorted, I'm okay, I'm brilliant, I can leave the house again, revenue's picking up. But if you don't have an ongoing cash flow model, you could get caught out in the next quarter of the next fiscal year. So also, as Tony mentioned, connect with other entrepreneurs. It doesn't have to be, something that costs you money. Look at your own network. Go on LinkedIn. See who else is in your industry. Just connect with other people and harness the collective power of a group. So let's dig into what's actually available. And these are the government reliefs. As I said, there's loads of information, but they really fall into these major categories. So if you're paying and you have an office at the moment, you can get rates relief, so you won't have to pay your rates if you're in the hospitality, leisure or retail sectors. And you can get a grant of £25,000 if you're in those sectors. If you're not in those sectors, you can still get grants up to £10,000. So definitely worth that. You should have received a letter. We'll go into the process in more details on a following slide. And you can also defer your taxes for up to 1 year. So, that's helping you get through this cash flow gap that you might have at the moment, business and personal. There's also the coronavirus job retention scheme. So you shouldn't have to make anyone redundant right now. With the job retention scheme, it should mean that the net cost of your team is nil unless you've got highly paid workers, again, which we'll dig into a bit more detail. And tax planning. This is a really interesting one. So this is not actually part of the reliefs that are available. However, you can go back, up to 3 or 4 years and have a look at your accounts. Did you actually minimize your tax liability, or did you just pay the tax that your accountant told you was the correct tax bill? Did anyone have a look at it? Did you get a second opinion? I would go back and have a look, because if you've overpaid tax, you could refile those accounts and get a tax refund. Research and development tax relief claims right now, they're not just for technology companies. We've got creative agencies, restaurants, for their menu planning, all sorts of businesses getting tax credits for R&D. We had a client this week.
I'd like to mention just for a second for all you watching.
Sure.
One of the reasons that I worked with Simon initially was I went to some of these large firms and I had a hard time getting to small, medium-sized kind of business to get the kind of attention they need. And so in order to try to give people value so that someone like Simon, who I knew was extraordinary and really good at finding those holes, we organized something where anyone in my seminars was able to have a tax review. Like most of you know, in a medical situation, you want a second opinion, right? But most people have stayed with the same accountant for a very long time, usually 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending on how long they've been in business. And what he's been able to do is find natural holes without going anywhere in the gray area at all that can save businesses 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 pounds or more very often. And he doesn't charge you anything for the review. If you want to implement it, then you can pay to implement it, but he finds and shows you what's really available. During these times when you're trying to look for cash, there may be, in many cases, often cases, there are holes in the past that just weren't seen that you can now get and get that credit so you have capital that's available for you now. And Simon does that also. Just want to, because he's humble about what he does. At the end, if you have interest, reach out to him about that, because he'll do that for no cost, a free analysis for you. But it's one of the more important tools that we have to kind of get some of our cash back right now to try to run our businesses. Please continue, Simon.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, and an example is we looked at a client's books maybe 3 months ago, and we identified £300,000 of overpaid tax. And this is a business that turns over £1 million, so across personal and business. I'm not saying that everyone's going to be like that. On average, we save between £5,000 and £50,000, but in every single set of accounts we will, that haven't had a second opinion, will find overpaid tax. So I would get R&Ds in as well. We had one that went in this week on the Monday. They were getting the cash tomorrow, so 5-day turnaround for an R&D claim. So definitely having a look at that. And the big one is the interruption loan. So there's business interruption loans. They're called the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, or C-bills, that you might have seen. Loans up to £5 million. They're interest-free for up to for the first 12 months, and you can spread the repayments over 6 years. And this is critical. There's no personal guarantee up to £250,000. So a large majority of business owners are going to be able to get access to up to 250K with no interest and no personal guarantee.
I want to clarify this. There's no interest in the loan the entire time?
For the first 12 months, Tony.
First 12 months. And then what is the interest after that?
It will be at a low interest rate. So it depends on the lenders. There's 40 different lenders. But we would anticipate, depends on the business, 6 to 8% interest, which is really low in the marketplace.
And are these government guaranteed? So do they need, I'm asking questions the audience may be wondering, is why I'm asking. Are these government guarantees? Do you have to have a certain credit level to be able to do it? What's the qualifications to make into this?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go into that, but on those 2 points, the government guarantee is 80% of the loan. Wow. So if you go over 250K, so if it's under 250K, it's effectively 100% of the loan. If it's over 250K, say you went for 5 million, 80% of that loan is guaranteed by the government. So you're only putting a personal guarantee in for 20%. And so you do need to have a reasonably okay credit score, but it doesn't mean, I've seen a question in the Q&A already about credit scores, it doesn't mean you won't get the loan, right? The way that we go through it, and I'll talk about the process that we have with our clients, there's always a way, 99% of the cases, if you go directly to the high street bank, yeah, definitely. If your credit score is, say, under 500, you're going to find it really difficult.
Got it.
So how does it work? Your financials need to be in great shape. What does that mean? Well, if you've got an online accounting system, perfect. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but they need to be reconciled to the end of March. That just means that every transaction that's in there needs to be explained, and there aren't these unreconciled items. If you're the kind of person who has a stack of receipts on your desk and then you give them to the accountant at the end of the year, now would be a good time to give them to the accountant and start getting them into great shape. You need a business case for the money. So we need a written business case to help the lenders understand, make it easy for them to say yes to your application. There's a clear process and there's a lot of information needed. And what's really, angers me is the only real word. There are currently Google adverts out there saying 3 simple steps to apply for the CBILS loan. And it's just not true. So the only thing I can think that they're trying to do, and it makes me angry because we're trying to put this on, Tony and I, to educate you guys and provide you all the information and skills and tools you need to have the best chance of getting through this. We don't have any kind of ulterior motive, and the only thing I can see is that they're trying to take an upfront fee, and then the information you'll actually need, which I'll go through on the next slide, maybe they're going to come back to you and say, well, actually, we need all of this from you. It's going to be more money. So a simple application for an interruption loan doesn't exist. As of the start of this week, Barclays, who are the biggest bank or one of the biggest banks in the UK, they had only approved 1 loan. They must have had tens of thousands of applications.
So that people are not deterred from that. Why? Because in my country, the biggest banks have been the slowest movers. In the US, all the community banks are the ones actually putting out the loans. Is it just a timing issue right now that they're getting them in? So help people know, so that is it worth applying for? Because otherwise, on the surface, the only ones have been approved in the whole country. It sounds like, well, what good is that going to do for me? I'm watching the Q&A here, and I'm seeing some people say, I got a small business. Does this really work for me? Can you address that? And also, just so I'm clear, are these loans, is the 80% forgiven at a period of time, or are these just loans that you pay off with no interest for that first year, as you described?
Yeah, they're not forgiven, which in the US, I think, Tony, means you don't have to pay that back.
Yeah.
So then this is a commercial loan, however, interest-free for the first 12 months, and certain lenders are offering no capital repayments for the first 12 months. So it can literally be 250K in and no cash out for the first year. However, you will have to start paying that back. And that's why it's important to build it into a cash flow forecast. Right. The reason, just speaking to your first point, the reason that banks weren't lending is the requirements were too complex from the government originally. In the last few days, you may have seen on the BBC, they've relaxed the requirements for a financial plan and a cash flow. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do one, because we want your application to be at the top of the pile. And again, we want to make it as easy as possible. If you go with the right lender, and there are 40, you should be able to get, I got a message from our funder this morning that was saying 2 to 3 weeks from the best lender.
I just want to clarify that so people know it's still gettable, just so it was too complex to start with. And they just made sure that the things you're putting on the screen, they can take a picture of, or they can get a copy of this, because we'll send it to them. These are the minimum things they need to have ready so that can go flow, or you can do it for them as well, obviously.
Exactly, yeah. So if it's a larger business and they've got an internal finance team, so we've had conversations this week with bigger businesses, we've given them the list, they've gone away and prepared the information themselves. And then we've helped them by looking and understanding which is the right lender for them. If it's a smaller business and maybe you're doing your own bookkeeping and you're looking at this list and thinking, how I don't even know what a statement of asset and liabilities is, you don't need to worry. We're here to help you. So, that we can definitely help with that process as well. So I'll run through these really quickly because some of them might not make any sense right now, but we'll give you the deck. And you can ask questions and we can go through anything. So statement of asset and liabilities. I just want you to see how much information there is that you need to apply with. Last 3 years certified accounts, detailed and full management accounts. So that will be up to the end of March. Credit reports for each director, a list of business debt, a positive balance sheet. This is an interesting one I'll give an example of afterwards. Check the metrics that the lender reviews are within the criteria. So the way that we do it is we use a funder in between the company and the lender. So what they're able to do is identify which of the 40 lenders are appropriate, because different lenders have different appetites for different industries. Okay, so you want to use a commercial understanding of which lender you should be submitting your application to. And again, you can research that yourselves. It's not hidden information. However, each lender will have certain metrics, certain calculations that they will do to get it through this initial, the computer says no stage, I call it. So we can pre-test that if we understand what the metrics are. It's really important. Otherwise, you are going to get it pushed back. And I've seen on the Q&A that people have had that situation. It'll be because they effectively just load your accounts into a computer and the computer says no before it even gets to a person. Open banking access, detailed financial plan and cash flow, that's been relaxed. However, for all the reasons we discussed before, I spoke through before, you need that. In my opinion, every business needs that right now, and a good business case for the loan. So qualifying for the loan means you are a good business. Maybe it's an events company. You can't put on those physical events, so there's been a drop in revenue, and you're almost applying for the gap in cash flow. And then we have to estimate how long this is going to go on for. The key items, so you can now apply for the loan directly. What you had to do previously, guys, was apply for a normal interest-bearing loan and be turned down in order to get access to this loan, which is ridiculous. It's supposed to be a loan for, for businesses that are going through hardships. So the government changed those rules 4 or 5 days ago. There's no personal guarantee under 250K. If you want more money than that, you should. There's one point to know. A personal guarantee doesn't mean that a bank can come and take your home, your property, your car. It just means that if your business has to close as a result of decreased trade, you have to agree that whatever's left on that loan, you will take that on personally and you'll agree a repayment schedule. It's only if a bank puts a debenture onto an asset, they can come and take that asset from you. So that's a bit of a common misunderstanding around personal guarantees. It's interest-free for 12 months. There's no upfront fees, which there usually are quite a lot of upfront fees in the UK, Tony, so that's something to consider. And just on a positive note, you saw those examples that Tony put out. We've worked with clients on pivot strategies over the last week to 10 days, had some really interesting ones, which I'll talk about. You can use this cash, even if maybe your monthly cash flows only drop by 10,000, and we think this is going to go for 6 months. Why not apply for 100 instead of 60 and use that 40K to put that money into a new part of your business to drive growth? Take something positive out of this period, and you've got access to this capital.
Simon, are there any prepaid penalties if you borrowed the money for a year, you're not paying interest, and then decided to pay it off at that time because you invested well in your business, or however you organize?
No, you could do that. So you could take the capital, you could invest it. I wouldn't obviously recommend, unless you've got expertise, doing things like taking it and doing stock market investment and those short-term things. But if you're going to put it into your business, or you know what you're doing there, the answer to your question is no. It varies lender to lender, but the whole point of the scheme is there shouldn't be any penalty for getting out of that early.
So it's really, if you can apply for it, if you get the right structure put together, what you guys can do, or they may have somebody can do it for themselves already, it's really free cash to help grow your business because of these unique times where things outside of our control stopped it. And so anybody who's in any form of business can pretty much qualify for this if they have decent credit. Is that correct?
That's correct, although you do have to be affected by the coronavirus. So if your business...
The business has to be affected, you mean, correct?
Correct. So if you're in hand sanitizer or, pizza delivery or those things, you wouldn't qualify for the loan to ramp up the growth of your pizza delivery place because it hasn't been negatively affected.
Got it.
And the second so that's the main area around loans. So the second main area is payroll furloughing. I can never say that word. Employees can be furloughed now. Okay. You need to send a letter to your employees. We've got templates available. You can get 80% back from the government, up to £2,500. So the key here is it should be net cost neutral, but that's obviously under the assumption that your team are on less than £3,125, which is the 100% of the 2,500. If you've got more, highly paid employees, or maybe you're a consultant, actually, you've got your own limited company, and you're an individual and you're making, £200,000-300,000, there is a limit to how much you can claim if you were to furlough yourself or if you were to furlough your team. So that's the only thing to be mindful of. What happens is there's a bigger picture, there's a planning element. If you furlough your team at 2,500, but you want to keep them on at their original salary, maybe it's 6,000, that's where the interruption loan comes in. So you can see with my finger gestures, the payroll furlough covers the bottom bit, and then the interruption loan will top up the salary. So the portal's not yet open. The HMRC came out today, I think, actually, and said that 23rd of April, they're going to open the payroll portal. Then we will know what the application process is. So if there's any kind of audit process of whether you actually should be furloughed. I don't think practically there can be too much investigation around this. It's going to be more on a trust basis. We're saying to clients at the moment to consider furloughing non-revenue generating staff, but at your own risk, because we don't know what the portal will say when it opens. If those staff decide to work on internal projects for you, and they're not revenue generating, and that's off their own back voluntarily, then it's my understanding and my advice that would still be okay to furlough them. You know, if you've made anyone redundant during this period because you got fearful, okay, and you made mistakes, I would say, if they're on, you know, £3,000 or below, bring them back. You know, bring them back, get them back on the payroll. HMRC have said that this is fine, it's okay, we can do this. Furlough them and then get the credit back. You know, don't leave anyone behind. There doesn't need to be a reason to make anyone redundant if you can get the furlough. And we would advise reducing people's pay to the 80%. So without getting into the weeds on it, the pay stays the same, but you agree with them in a series of letters that need to be followed to the T, that they're only going to take cash payment of 80%. You can also claim the employer's national insurance, which are the payroll taxes, Tony, the pension contributions. And there are issues around the process and legality. So 2 days ago, I got a text message from someone I know is, you know, really well respected in HR, who just let me know internally that they're discussing lots of businesses are opening themselves up to potentially multi-million-pound legal cases because they're furloughing their employees and effectively they're using the wrong process to get them down to the 80%. And there's a massive risk here that people aren't aware of because people think that the loan is complicated, but the furloughing is easy. That is an area of risk for people. And then taxes. So VAT payments have been deferred, so you won't need to pay any VAT until the end of March. We think that if this isolation or quarantine continues, that will get pushed forward. There's no interest on VAT, but just one thing that no one seems to mention at the moment, make sure you cancel your direct debit, because if you submit your VAT payment through the portal and you've got an active direct debit, it's very likely that HMRC will still pull the cash and you can't get through to them on the phone at the moment to get the money back. So make sure you cancel your direct debit. All other taxes can be deferred. So again, this is just advice at your own risk. All taxes can be deferred. HMRC, I can tell you from speaking with them, or my team have been speaking with them, they're happy to give time to pay arrangements. So that just means not paying right now, paying in the future. They won't give you penalties. They don't really want you phoning them up to notify them right now because they're so busy, and it's 3.25% interest. So you can kind of think about it as a cheap form of finance. Your self-assessment payment, which could be due at the end of July, is not due. That will get rolled forward to January, the following January next year. And that's your personal tax payment, okay? So if your tax liability as an individual is over £1,000, you have to pay in January, July. So your July payment won't be due. And then rates relief. So if you currently pay rates, this will automatically not be due. Again, cancel the direct debit. Wait for the local council to send you a letter or try to call them. If you haven't got access to the office, so this is the organisation of our government, they've sent out letters to everyone to access the rates relief or get notified about the rates relief. You're not allowed to go to the office. So let's go to the local council website. Let's fill in the online forms and let's make sure that we are on the list, okay, for that relief. I saw a question in the Q&A before about co-working spaces. So my next slide is about grants. The co-working spaces like WeWork, I know are kind of arguing with their tenants, and some other co-working spaces, they will get rates relief. If they do, they can apply for a grant on your behalf. Okay, so you can get the grants. So let's go on to that. If you're in a co-working space and you've got either a private office or a hot desk, it will just be in relation to kind of how much space you're taking up. So if you already get small business rates relief, that means you don't pay any rates. We've got a restaurant client, for example, that gets that. You can apply for a grant. So it's up to £25,000, and grants are forgivable. I'm still getting up with US, UK lingo, but the grant is forgivable, which means you don't need to pay it back. And other industries are up to £10,000. So how do you maximize the benefits? So hopefully that part of the presentation gives you good information about what's available, but it's not just accessing the capital either through the loan or deferring taxes, but what do you plan to do next? It's really, really critical. I can't stress this enough, to create a financial crisis plan. So you may have already had a financial plan, and you may be saying, Simon, look, this doesn't apply to me. I've got a finance team. I've got a detailed financial plan and a cash flow. But unless they're commercially savvy and they're adapting that plan and basically creating a new one, because we're in a new economy, you may as well, put it in the bin and start again. So it's a good time to also review all financial systems, processes, and plans. We had a law firm, quite a prominent law firm in the UK, approach us to see if we could get access to the interruption loan. So this is a good example for you about the 10 items that you do need to get right to get a yes on the loan. They, on paper, an amazing business, really good growth rates, but their balance sheet was negative. And the balance sheet was negative. What that means is, on paper, they've got more liabilities than assets. So the number in the middle is a negative number. And the reason is their accountant had taken all of this, the money that they'd spent over the last few years, and they'd spent that on developing this technology platform that was being processed as a cost, which creates their negative balance sheet. Okay, just to keep it simple, it's being processed as a cost, and it should have been recognized as an asset because you're building a technology platform. If they'd have perform correct accounting, this is a multi-million-pound turnover law firm with an internal finance team and a top 10 accounting firm, they could have gone for the loan. However, they're going to have to go back. We've let them know what they need to do, and they're going to have to readjust the last 2 to 3 years accounts if they want to get access to the loan. So you can use funding for growth. I talked about this. With an awareness of what you can claim, you can use the capital to apply to any pivot strategy, and every business should have one. So really nice example that I like. I'm not sure whether he's on the call or not, but we've got a photographer business who I spoke to last week on the phone that was really going through troubles. I mentioned him earlier on. It's an amazing photographer, but just he can't get out to take pictures. So we went through the pivot strategy tool that I developed over the phone. And we worked through what his strengths were, where he sat in the marketplace, what did his customers really want right now, what could he bring to the market. And we brainstormed for half an hour, 45 minutes, and we came up with the fact that he's got massive authority in the marketplace. So why not help people right now who are at home, who are photographers, just take a step in his direction with an online course that's, really low price point, something for them to do when they're at home to learn and develop, as we all should be doing. And we ran the numbers. We got back, we ran the numbers, created a plan. And, we believe that business will be bigger and more scalable, and it's already more profitable than the original business. So really nice example. But another consideration, you need to act fast. Okay, so there's 330 billion on the table, and it sounds like a lot, but everyone is getting in line for this funding. We need to make sure, as I said, that we've got a flawless application. We're applying to the right lenders. We're doing all the right pre-testing. And if you're applying for other reliefs, it's critical to plan out the financial and cash flow impact in real time. I had a message through from the British Business Bank today to say that you have to have applied or write in your business case that you've applied or considered for the other arrangements, so payload, furloughing, time to pay arrangements. You've been through all your bank accounts and reduced your costs as much as possible before you go for the loan. So whether you do that or not, we need to at least build that into the business case. And this is kind of how we've started helping our clients through this crisis. We knew, there was a problem. We started pivoting. As Tony said, I have my own chartered accountancy firm that's been running for 10 years, GrowFactor, and been a UK partner in the Global Accounting Advisors for the last few years. And in both fronts, we've consulted on what reliefs apply to them, how to apply for those reliefs. And we've, in some cases, submitted applications for them. And as I said, we do that through an intermediary to look over the business case before it goes to the lender. The issue with going direct to the lender as well is that it will stamp your credit file every time you go to the lender. So if you go to a high street bank and you apply and you get that sent back, you've now got a stamp on your credit file that's not going to go away, that says denied. And if we get another one and another one, you could have 3 stamps and then it's game over. You're not going to get a loan.
So Simon, so I'm clear. So in your country, then, if you go to the go-between and they're the ones making the applications, then it doesn't go on your personal credit?
Yeah, it's an informal process. If they've got relationships and enough experience where they can soft apply to the lender. Okay, so, the person that we use or works with us, one of them, just as an example, has 32 years of working in retail banking, just doing funding. So they can send something over and they'll have a look at it before putting it through the computer and give them a soft yes or no. So that step is just so critical. And that's why, I would never go direct. I didn't go direct to High Street Bank for any of our business funding, for personal funding, for mortgages. I will always use an intermediary. So helping clients learn how to pivot into a new business model, that's just something that we've done informally to start with, and now we've created a tool around that just to put the process in place. We've helped our clients build out financial plans and cash flow models. And so the thing is, we want to help as many business owners as possible, not just our regular clients. And with this incredibly high demand, we reach capacity on the one-to-one process almost instantly. So I open my diary 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., 7 days a week, much to the annoyance of my wife, who I haven't seen for about 2 weeks.
And I just want to, if I may, just step in and say, when Simon and I were talking about this, he and all my other partners have gotten maxed out so quickly. And yet I said I want to do a webinar, and they all said to me, Tony, I'm happy to educate people. And I said, well, that's great. Let's give them all they need to do. But I also know many of you need your hand held, right? You need somebody who can guide you through the process. And unfortunately, these guys don't have that. And I also, even in my own businesses, I went to 3 different legal firms, spent about $25,000 US just trying to figure out the answers. And that's before getting implementation. In the end, our partner in the US did it for us and did it in no time. But I said to Simon, isn't there a way that you could still keep your wife happy, still take care of your clients, but do something in a small, intimate group where people get that personal help over time, and not only the help about the applications for the loans, but also on your cash flow and on your pivoting. And so I said, come up with something, and we're partners. And I said, I will take nothing from it. I want the lowest possible price point that any business that's committed can work this out and still get the coaching. And so that's how I came up with this type of online type of program. So maybe Simon, you can walk people through it.
Thanks, Tony. So yeah, we, as Tony said, in line with our mission, we genuinely want to help as many business owners as possible and have the largest impact. So just being on this webinar and having you guys, come on and get all the information is super rewarding. But we needed to come up with an alternative where it doesn't just leave people on their own, because as Tony said, some people want to do it themselves. Some people want to do it with you. Okay. And this is what we've worked out with Tony. So we've put together what we've called a business owner survival kit to get you through the next 90 days, which is a live and interactive 90-day program to not only help your business survive, but help it thrive. And and this is what you'll get. So just stick with me. I'm going to go through all the things that are included, and also it will give you a roadmap that if you are going to be a person who wants to do this themselves, or they've got their own finance team, this will give you the step-by-step in terms of what you should be doing. So you need to get tools, templates, and resources to increase your profitability and short-term cash. And that means your pivot plan. It means looking at releasing hidden profit and cash right now. We've got a step-by-step process for that. These values are the values that we've quoted, had accepted, and been charging people on a one-to-one basis. So we validated those, but we just, as I said, we can't serve the amount of people that we want to serve. So the interruption self-application guide. So we help guide you through how you can apply for the loan and use the intermediary process for the soft application. We'll provide contacts for the intermediaries as well if you need to, and they don't charge a fee. The government relief maximisation plan, so that's looking at all of the reliefs, bringing them together and seeing which ones apply for you. A financial forecasting roadmap. So this alone is going to stand your business in great stead for the rest of the business. This is building out a full financial model with you, not for you, with you, so that you can learn along the process as well. A roadmap for your business to get through this, but then also outside, you can keep using that financial model forever. An industry-specific cash flow model. So if you've got online accounting, great, we'll use online. If you've got offline, we'll work industry-specific and accounting system-specific cash flow model. And this is a really key thing. So 12 weekly live trainings. This is going to be 60 to 90 minutes, same time every week. If you can't get into the live, you'll have access to the recordings. All the elements of this process are going to get taught, so we do it with you. There's Q&A 24/7, and I'm going to personally be in there to do the training and to answer all of your questions. And we're going to bring everyone in. Facebook groups are the best place for us to do this right now, because we can create units and modules. Every time there's an update for government legislation, for example, I can jump on and do a live video. We can all be in there together. And it's a super easy place because everyone's in Facebook, super easy place for everyone to understand. So the total value of that's 21,450. So you can see why that we are not, we're not wanting to go through this. It's not applicable for everyone. People with smaller businesses can't afford to do it this way. So what we decided with Tony, and he's definitely asked us to go for, the lowest possible price point, being that we're going to get a really good group together. And so you're going to get all of that for $497 per month for 3 months. So just to be clear, it's 3 payments of $497, and you get all of that, okay? All of that information, all of those tools. There's going to end up being 20 to 30 plus tools in there. Just the first step, which I'm going to load into the group this evening, just finished it up, just going to do the live training after this call to go through it. That is a hidden profit and cash flow releaser for your business. I can guarantee you that you'll get return on investment for this program just from going through that first tool.
And guys, just so you know, as I said, I'm taking nothing from this. I asked him to do something that's ridiculous. Obviously, that's not worth his time for what he gets from a normal client. But my argument to Simon and Simon, I appreciate very much your approach to this, is people need help right now. And you take care of them for this next 90 days at a ridiculously low price, and you over-deliver. Many of these people will decide to become long-term clients for you. And he knows that if he over-delivers, it makes you a raving fan and helps you get the money you need, turn your business around, put the cash flow plans together, get rid of the stress, get you focused on what he does so well that he's likely to retain. Many of you will decide to become clients of his. And so that's what this is really about, just trying to give you the best resources possible over this next 3 months or 90 days to get to the light and figure out how to make your business successful. That's the intent of it all. But as you've seen on here, we haven't held anything back. You can do all this on your own if you want to. And we're going to post this, all of our slides, and we'll do a repost for some of you who joined us late and so forth later on, so you can review it as well. But this is how you can take advantage of this opportunity. I highly encourage you to do it. Again, I'm not taking anything from it. For 90 days, for $495, $97 is incredibly cheap. Please take advantage of it. Or if you know what to do, then use the checklist we've given you and just go get the money, get your business run, because you're going to get the capital you need. You're going to be able to cover a significant amount of the overhead of the people you have, And those experiences, those foundational experiences, without the right cash flow analysis, you'll just burn through. So you've got to be able to pivot and be ready. And so I really want you to know Simon has got those skill sets for you. And he's got a way for you to take this and maybe some members of your team and learn online from the convenience where you are while you're still home, unable to take advantage, so you can hit the ground running once the doors open and we're back in business together.
And there's one other thing, Tony. So I added this yesterday. That's right. There's no limit to how many people can come in. So if you've got a business, then you can bring your team on all of those. It's a really good question. I hadn't thought of, but that's absolutely fine. I've freed up my calendar and reorganized things within us internally. So I want to make sure that we can hit the ground running with this group, because as I said, I'm loading in the tool tonight and I'm ready to get going. I'm excited to start helping people. If you act now and you sign up from the webinar link, this is only for the first 50 because I've calculated how much time I've got. But you will get 2 one-to-one consultations with me, not a member of my team, but with me. The first one is to review your pivot plan, create a crisis plan together, and I'll instantly improve your cash flow, guaranteed. Second consultation is to review your funding plan before we submit. If it's not funding, it'll be looking at all the tax reliefs and build out, and review your financial plan together. So that's 2 one-to-one consultations deliberately, so we space them apart with me personally. That's only for the first 50, and it's only if you go and sign up from the webinar, so today, effectively.
So take that link and run, because I know you include 2 one-on-ones. That's pretty crazy. Take advantage. If you want some personal help, this is it. Please click on the address right there, or copy it and put it in your server and make
There's 3 S's, which is confusing, but yeah, businesssurvivaluk.com.
Businesses survival, yes. Make sure you don't miss the 3 S's in the middle there. That's great. All right. Are you finished where we can go for some questions and answers then?
Sure. Yeah, great.
Fantastic. Thanks for everybody being on the line. I hope this has been helpful for you so far. We'll take about 10 minutes of questions. I think we have some people, we have a moderator, and she can introduce some people that are available visually, and then we can answer some questions just auditorily off the Q&A real quick.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Simon. Thank you very much for this webinar. It's been incredibly insightful for growing businesses like mine. We established about 6 months ago. We're an ethical company selling sustainable packaged water in the UK that contains no plastic. So been 6 months old. When COVID hit, our sales took a massive dip, and we were left with a decision to make, whether we try to double down on sales or try to be of service to our community, something that I've learned from attending Tony's masterclasses. And one of the questions that we have, so one of the tasks that we took on doing, which was part being part of the community, was we've shifted from selling to donating our stock to doctors and nurses, keeping them hydrated whilst they're on the front lines. So with that, we've had a couple of staff that we've furloughed, and what I want to know, 2 parts to the question is am I able to utilize them to bring them back to business and help with our donation process, because they're not revenue generating? And secondly, when would we be eligible to receive the grants for the furloughed staff?
I would say that you can, okay? But the reason I put at your own risk in the slide is that on the 23rd of April, when the portal opens, we will know, how strict they're going to be about that. But look, it has to be common sense. How can someone say you cannot furlough someone and let them do good for the community in the NHS, which is effectively what you're saying? Can I furlough my employees and let them voluntarily take water to the hospitals? It's just, it's crazy. And if we were representing you, we would argue that as far as it needed to go, in terms of, I would believe that would be fine. But to categorically say yes, on the 23rd, we'll have all the information. And the HMRC said today that your furlough credit will come in before the end of this month.
Also, just think about your own pivot in your business. You've been running a business, sounds like that, with sustainable water is something that we all need. And what is that? It's all about convenience. And so you got to think about it. Somebody I saw earlier in the chat said, I have a male barber business and, people aren't coming in. What am I going to do? I have a gentleman here that cuts my hair locally in Palm Beach, Florida. It's a pretty high-end wealthy community. And there's a large number of super high-end wealthy people that also, I'm talking about billionaire groups that normally come into his facility. I think in both cases, you got to think in terms of how people are getting used to having everything delivered. I think if you were to offer a direct shipment to the home for sustainable water, I think that's, if you're not already doing it, you got to do that. It's got to be part of your business. It's got to be easy. It has to, if I can do something that's good for the planet, good for the community, good for me, good for my family, and it's convenient, that's awesome. But if it's not convenient also, unfortunately, a lot of people are not going to respond. So it's simple. You need to have a service that goes directly to their homes. Obviously, that's more time, more energy, but you can also charge for it for that client. That client, for having this done in their home, you could charge them twice as much in some cases, 2.5 times as much in that market. So I think you just got to look at, you've got a great product or service. You've answered the question about what you want answered here, but I would be thinking about the pivot and saying you could become more successful than before if you can provide something that people really want. The best quality of water, good for the environment the way it's being done, delivered to my home and totally convenient. That convenience part is so simplistic, but in the world we live in today, it's becoming more and more of a must for people. The more friction between you and your customer, it's like, as I was saying to the guys in the movie business, right? Okay, if I gotta sit 6 feet apart from my partner and you're gonna put a thermometer on me, screw it, that's too much friction. I'll stay home and watch Netflix. That's kind of people's mindset. Your job is to eliminate as much friction as possible. If you can get that product directly to people, I would suggest to you, if you don't already have it, I'd be gearing up for that. And I'd come up with 2 things for all of you in your businesses. The first question that I ask in every business I take over is, who is the ideal customer? Who's the customer who's going to really love this the most? Not the person I have to push so hard. The person that once they get it will be a raving fan. The person will refer other people. The person that will buy cases of your water as opposed to, single little pieces every now. Who is that person? And identify, what do they want? What do they need? What do they fear? What's their life like? I want to know their psychology, what they desire most, what they fear most. And then the second thing to do in every business that's taken my businesses from nothing to over 6 billion a year in sales in US dollars is constantly saying, what's the irresistible offer? What can I do that adds so much value to people, that the offer is so ridiculously good that they say, my God, I gotta try this. And then when they try it, you, step 3, you over deliver. You do again more than you ever expect. And that's how you build a raving fan as opposed to a satisfied customer. So I'll give you an example. In my country, back in 1999, 2000, a friend of mine, a couple of guys started a little company to sell shoes to women online. It's called Zappos. And it was a total failure, because if you think about 1999, 2000, remember Y2K, think about where your head was at. And if somebody said, I want you to invest in a company that is going to sell shoes to women online, what would your response be? Most of these responses, are you crazy? It's never going to work. Why? Because I got to try them on. And so what are they going to do? They're going to find shoes online they like visually. They're going to buy them, pay to ship them, try them on. And if they don't fit, then they got to pay to ship them back. And the company was going through the floor. And then a friend of mine named Tony Shea, who today is the CEO of the company still, he came along and took it over and said, guys, you already have the ideal customer. Women love shoes. A woman could put on one shoe, she's one kind of woman. Put another one, she's another woman. Different color, different shape, different height. Not the same for most men, right? For men, they're shoes for the most part. But for women, a woman can link shoes to happiness. So he said, you have the ideal customer. You just have a shitty offer. You need an irresistible offer. And I said, well, what is that? He said, well, the friction, what's in the way, is having to pay for shipping. He said, why don't you let people buy, here's your new offer. You can buy as many pairs of shoes as you want, 20 pairs if you want. We'll ship them all to you at our expense for the shipping, right? Shipping's free. If you try them on, you don't like any of them, ship them back, we'll pay the shipping back. Now, if you're the investor hearing this in the company, you're an investor and somebody says, this is the deal I want to make, you're going to be, are you crazy? We're going to go bankrupt. He goes, that's right. You're already going bankrupt. You might as well try an irresistible offer. And by the way, here's what happened. They put that offer out and women bought like crazy. And the investor's like, oh my God, they're going to ship them all back. No, because how many ladies out there, if there's a group of people you'd be able to see, have bought shoes that didn't quite fit, but you kept them because you knew they would in the future, right? And when I do this in audiences of 10 or 20,000 people, half of them are women, you get 8,000, 10,000 hands raising their hand. And that's exactly what happened. They keep the vast majority of the shoes. And this little company that was starving, 3 or 4 guys working out of a house, now got sold for $1.2 billion to Amazon about 8 years ago. And I don't know what their total numbers are now, but I believe they're over 4 billion. And Tony Hsieh still runs the company because, you know, he did it not just for the money, he did it because he loves creating culture. And so you just got to think in terms of who's your irresistible, what's your client and what's the irresistible offer, and yours has got to become more convenient. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's essentially what we have been doing in terms of our plan. We're going direct to direct sales.
Well, what's your offer?
It's free delivery is what our offer is, and we've also given a discount code to people as an introductory. But
if you want my 2 cents, which is all it's worth, is 2 cents, I would come up with it's the free. Everybody's offering free shipping, everything else now. I would come up with something different, something that could contrast, something that could show the water they're drinking normally versus yours. And for proof of it, you're going to offer them a week of water at no cost, or 4 days of water at no cost, and then on a ship to forbid. I would do something so that it is easy to do business with you. Free shipping by itself is not enough. I'm just trying to give you an example of something that seemed like suicide when someone's going to buy 20 pairs, pay free shipping, and ship it back. But the product was so good, it worked. But just think about this new world, how you're going to tap into that. And thank you for your question. Let's go to the next person.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Simon. Can you hear me?
Nice to see you. Good to see you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. My name's Lauren. I'm in London. I loved your point, Tony, about investing in ourselves right now. That's I know that because I've been to Business Mastery. I'm aware that like right now, even though there are challenges in my business, I want to keep investing. And I want to ask about the survival kit, just to make sure that it's the right investment for me right now. Who is going to be delivering the actual calls? So I know you mentioned there were Q&As, Simon. Who's going to be delivering those, and how does that work? How often are they, and what kind of value are we going to get on the actual Q&A calls? Are they a group? Can you share a bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So the weekly calls are more like, each week there'll be a theme to the content. So maybe one week or the first week is how to release hidden profit and cash in your business. So that call will be a group live call, recorded and then loaded into the Facebook group along with the worksheets. And we're going to do 2 different versions because we know there's 2 different people. One that want all the detail, the 8-9 page tool, and the single pager. So that will be me every single week doing that. In terms of the Q&A, also, I'm going to be in there every day answering people's questions personally. I'm realistic. I've got support. So if we need support to answer questions that aren't necessarily technical or accounting, then, a member of our support team will do that. But anything that's to do with any of the financial aspects that we've talked about today will be me. I really want to do this. It's not that we, came up with this kit in order to create a new product. Our goal in this was genuinely, how do we help people, but at scale? So it doesn't make sense for us to do that, and then for me not to get the reward of helping people and answering their questions myself, because that's why we did it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Let's do some Q&A. Maybe you've seen some patterns on the traditional Q&A, and you can give us a few of those. Let's do 3 or 4 of those real quick before we wrap up.
Yeah, no problem. This question comes from Nicole Horner and many others. Is it possible for private landlords to apply for any of these loans, or do they have to be classed as a business?
A private landlord is usually classed as an investment business, in which case they don't qualify for the interruption loan. However, they do qualify for other forms of finance. So what I would recommend on that is that instead of it being the interruption loan process, if we were working with you in the group, it would be looking for another form of finance. So we're working on some mezzanine finance for an investor at the moment for a deal that it got turned down, and we found them another lender. So probably it would get classed as investment, so you won't qualify, honestly. But there are other forms of finance. There's appetite to lend. So you can definitely get some help.
Great, let's go for another.
Okay, this question comes from Julian De Silva. Simon, I'm furloughing staff. What can you suggest for employees with much higher income than 2,500 PCM?
Yeah, great question. So I would definitely put together the maximizer plan, which is effectively, let's look at what your profit and loss and cash flow looks like now. Let's map out the effect of the 2.5 grand coming in every month, and let's see where your shortfall is, okay? And so for that shortfall, that's where we apply for the interruption loan. If the releasing hidden profit and cash tool does not, remove enough of this outgoing cash, you apply for the interruption loan to cover the difference. So for most businesses, we're recommending, let's go for all the reliefs and top up with the interruption loan.
The other thing that's happening here in the US is, unfortunately, a lot of companies literally let go of 90% of their staff, furloughed at least 90% of their staff, so they could still get the health benefits, but they have no income. And so we avoided that thus far. And part of the focus that we try to do with those people is to say, listen, how can you maybe rationalize maybe some of the days, even some of the people, we have a different formula in our country, but we have some of those higher end people and some of the businesses, they're saying, okay, instead of working 6 days or 5 days a week, they're working 4 or 3, and they're being fully paid for that, but it brings the number down slightly while the business is smaller, but they don't lose their job and they feel like they're still able to be productive. So there's many ways to skin the cat. That's why it's really good to have somebody who's working with you to fully analyze every aspect of this and its impact on your cash flow.
The other thing, if I can just add one point, is if we pivot as well, you can also get those guys or girls working on your pivot strategy and growing another aspect of your business, right?
That's true. Couple more.
Yep, this question comes from Karina Phillips. What would you recommend that someone who's a sole director of a limited company with no other employees?
Yeah, so if you're a sole director and you're doing what even we've advised our clients for the most part, which is small salary around £700 plus dividends, you can only claim £550 roughly for the payroll flowing if you follow yourself. So if you're a consultant and you can't get out, I got confirmation of this today from our funding intermediary. If you can't get out to do the work and you're a sole director and you can't work remotely or from home and you have had your revenue affected, you can definitely apply for the interruption loan. So I would do that. Otherwise, if it's a case of your income's maybe 40, 50K and we can work with you to create a pivot strategy to get the income up and also reduce your outgoing costs, it's about looking at everyone's case through a process. So it's either going to be the interruption loan or looking at, cutting your costs and leaning out during this period, along with building a new revenue stream.
Okay, couple more.
This question comes from Javier Sahota. How long does it take for funds to arrive after the CBILS loan application?
Yeah, so at the moment, if you go for the banks, it could be up to 3 months, the high street banks. If we pick a lender that is matched to your industry and they have a relationship with the intermediary and your application is flawless, 2 to 3 weeks, realistically. We're not saying, okay, we're going to help you create a flawless application, you're going to get the money next Wednesday. It's still going to be 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, that's a lot better than 2 to 3 months. My God, 2 to 3 months is way too long for what's happening right now. That's nuts.
For sure.
Couple more.
This question comes from Benedetto Bردoni. When successfully raising money in the past, we've always presented a positive vision with some robust financials. However, these are extraordinary times. Should we present a growth scenario or be cautious based on the current environment?
Be cautious based on the current environment for sure, right? Always be realistic. You can't go into the banks and paint a rosy picture right now. They know what the situation is. My process for that would be, let's create 3 scenarios and let's go into the bank and let's look through the 3 scenarios together, because things are changing all the time. So let's map out best, medium, worst case scenario, and let's have a conversation around it. And also let's, match to the lender appropriate to our industry, as I've said before. But definitely I would create scenarios and not just go in with either a good or a bad plan. So
the banks already know, right? They're connected to society. You're not going to pull the wool over their eyes with enthusiasm. And I think you come across much more as a much more bankable client if you can say, hey, in the worst case scenario, we can still do this, and medium this, and hey, if things get decent again, it's here. I couldn't agree more. You always want to read the mind read the person there, and they're looking for bullshit. You don't want to announce a bullshit in what you're presenting, not to yourself and not certainly to the people you're trying to get banking from. One or two more.
Thanks for putting this together, guys. I will try and get this question as quickly as I can. First of all, Tony, I joined your tribe as a plat partner in November 18.
Yes.
Spent a year finding myself and working out what I should do. So I pivoted in November 19. Got everything great. Everything was going fantastic until then. So my first question really, I guess, is to Simon, is to say, what is regarded as a viable business? Because if you look at the last 3 months, fantastic. If you look at the last year, well, I was spending all my time watching this man on stage, so I wasn't really earning money. My second question then, a lot of people I think are in the same situation as me, whether a consultant, but they've set up as a limited business for tax reasons, and they've got small tax and dividends. I think you covered this a bit already, but how do those people apply? Maybe the second one's covered, maybe the first one's more relevant.
Yeah, I think just to answer that again.
And for any business, Simon, there's some people who may have just started a business this year. So like in my country, they were using past tax returns, but they took the first 2 months, January, February in the US, and said, if you've got a bit, we'll use that as your track record. Is there anything like that for new businesses and things of that nature? It also relates to them.
Letter of the law says no. So letter of the law says 3 years trading for the interruption loan. However, there's 40 different lenders. So I can't stress this enough that, I mean, if I was an individual and I was a business and I had no understanding, how do I choose between these lenders?
Yes.
And if you go direct to, I won't mention any names, but if you go direct to a funding platform, which will come up on Google if you type interruption loan, they will just chuck your information out, and you're going to get stamp on your credit record, because they just want someone to match. It's almost like a bidding platform. That's how it works. So I would, we have a list of the 40 lenders. We have a list and up-to-date information because we talk to them every day, which ones are willing to lend to businesses with less than a year's trading history. Maybe there's going to, maybe there's going to be 5 or 10 instead of 40, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. But I would say if you go to the high street banks, you're going to find that really difficult unless they were your bankers throughout the whole process, in which case they can see the whole picture. And if you're earning enough money, which is the case at the banks, unless you're earning enough money, you're not going to get to talk to someone on a personal level. If you are at that level, great, go and have the conversation. Otherwise, look at the map of lenders to see who are actually lending. But there's definitely something out there for you. And there's a petition at the moment, Tony, with about 200,000 signatures to get dividends included for sole director consultants up to a certain level. Because at the moment, the only thing that, an individual director's got is £550 a month from the salary. The dividends don't count. So at least give us the 2,500, right?
Makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you for sticking on. Take a look at all that you've got here that you can take advantage of the government, and don't wait. The biggest thing is these dollars are going to go away. The reason we put this together rapidly for you is so that you can get, hopefully, to the front of that line and begin to take advantage. And Simon, again, he's offering for the first 50 of you to give you actually 2 private consultations. But then you've got the 90 days where you'll be able to have this kind of once a month or once a week component to keep you guided to get your business from here to where you really want to go. Hope all this has been helpful for you. God bless. Live strong, live with passion, and go crush your business in the best way. Thanks for joining us.